Hi, greetings, Maryland Lyric Opera family. I hope you're all well during this crazy, unprecedented time. And with that, I'm going to move on to the first question, which I assume you see right there on the screen. You really want to know my life story? Okay, okay. So I was born in Princeton, New Jersey. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. There was a brief stop off in my parents' native state of Texas for a few years. My relatives won't let me say I'm a Texan, so I'm okay with that. My first experiences with opera and classical music were both very strange. The first one, I'll go with classical music first. I was about 8 or 9, and my father was getting these free tickets to the Phoenix Symphony Orchestra, and he took me. Mom didn't want to go, and I would go, and I'm going to get to sit with Dad, and we're going to get to watch this cool music, and it was okay. I mean, I wasn't moved by it. I wasn't just thrilled by it from the very get-go. But I saw some incredible people. I saw the conductor was a man by the name of Guy Taylor, who was very good. And I got to see Claudio Arau play the piano, which was pretty neat. Now, I freely admit I didn't appreciate it at the time. I was 8 or 9 years old, and all I could think of was, wow, this is really long. But I admit it laid the foundation. Now, opera. This is weird. Before the Arizona Opera moved to Phoenix, there was a little opera company called the Valley Opera, and my father was the music director. And he did the operas that he wanted to do with the people he wanted to do them, and sometimes he would use his wife, my mother, to do the soprano roles. But we would rehearse, they would rehearse in some of the strangest places, like my father's church. They would rehearse in the basement. It was a grassroots opera before there was such a thing called grassroots. And I have to say, as a result of that rather traumatic experience, it is a bloody miracle that I have a profession for 35 plus years as an opera singer, because I would have sworn that was the absolute, that's absolutely not what I wanted to do for a living, much less even be involved in. I wanted no part of it, but I had other plans. And when I entered college, I had that in the back of my mind, even though my father, who was an avid musician and an opera lover and had done opera roles, and my mother and father were both opera singers and opera aficionados. I had several majors before I even turned to music. In fact, I graduated with an art degree. I never really got around to I did dabbled with music, and it wasn't until my senior year that a rather unscrupulous professor who knew I had a voice. He invited me to do the baritone role in a piece called Old Maid and the Thief, written by Giancarlo Menotti. Now, it's not his best work. It's not. I'm sorry, Giancarlo. If you're looking at this, I'm sorry. It's just not your best work. But it was a baritone role with an aria, and it was a weird character, and I tend to gravitate towards weird characters. And the bug bit. I think we did 3 performances or 2 performances or something like that. And the bug bit, and I thought, I think I had that paradigm shift and says I need to pursue this. Next, our family moved to Oklahoma, where my father took a job in the university, and at that school I majored in music in order to get a second bachelor's degree to kind of catch up. And while I was in that music department, I did 4 operas, including La Boheme, the bass role in La Boheme, and then the title role in The Marriage of Figaro. And I did my professional debut with none other than the great maestra Judith Somoji, and I did a very small role in Der Cavalleria with the Tulsa Opera. Made $150 on my professional debut. From there, I was awarded a scholarship to this place called Inspiration Fine Arts Colony in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Say that 3 times fast. It is now called the Opera Opera in the Ozarks. Smart, change that name. I did 4 roles that summer. The director of that camp's name was Roger Cantrell, and he was contacted by a gentleman by the name of Robert Swedberg, who was the general director and the managing director of a thing called the North Carolina Opera, which was the touring branch of the Charlotte Opera Association, now called Opera Carolina. And I had a contract, sight unseen, or I guess sound unheard. Does that work? I worked there for 2 years doing lead roles in 5 touring shows and sang smaller roles with the parent company, the Charlotte Opera Association. I mean, we toured all over North and South Carolina in a station wagon, an ugly station wagon. Now I'll tell you something else, and we sang for kids. That will teach you communication skills. I remember a year where we did a cut down version of the Magic Flute, not die Zauberflöte, because we did it in English. And they loved my character. I was doing Papageno, so I got to bounce all over the place and be funny and goofy. But the soprano had a 27-second version of Ach ich fühl's. Ah, I feel. I mean, the minute they started plunking off those minor chords, those kids started coughing and shifting in their seats. It was the longest 27 seconds of my entire career. From there, I auditioned in New York, and I auditioned for the Marilla program in San Francisco Opera. I was greeted by a contract to do the title role in Don Giovanni, which led to the Western Opera Theater tour of Don Giovanni in the title role, which also led to a prestigious Adler Fellow. And for there, 2 years, I was there 2 years, and I did a lot of small roles with the company and covered big roles. I covered things like The Barber of Seville and Lescaut in Manon. I covered Leo Nucci doing The Barber of Seville. Great stuff like this. I should say that shortly after there, I crashed and burned around 1990 for about two and a half years on a combination of multiple addictions, a bad marriage, and an ego that was writing checks that my talent simply could not cash. I met and was, right around the end of that period of time, I met and was hired by Jerome Hines, who was the managing director and founder of an organization called Opera Music Theater International, otherwise known as OMTI, in Newark, New Jersey. And I have to say, I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity, because it was there that I was able to work on multiple obstacles at the same time. Over that course of about that 2 or 3 years, Mr. Hines systematically repaired my voice and my horrible attitude. And I was rehired by the New York City Opera in 1994 and did 9 seasons in a row. And the rest is history. My Met debut was 2001. My Lyric Opera of Chicago debut was 2002. My European debut is 2003. Munich debut was 2005. And I have to say, I have an incredible body of work that I can look back on and say, wow, I have a lot to be grateful for, and this has been a blessed career.